The 2019 election year is crucial for the implementation of reforms in Ukraine. That is what both Ukrainian experts and international partners believe. After all, more has been done in the recent years than in the entire history of independence. Though it's too early to talk about completing the implementation of reforms, it's very important not to lose those achievements.
We have to make sure that the tremendous change which happened in your country over the last 5 years will not be victim of any setback. This is our common role. Let's make sure once again that the new leadership build on what has been built over the last 5 years. First idea, to preserve the sustainability of reforms. Second idea, in my view, the elections show that the sense of the reform process has not really been perceived by a large majority of the people in this country. And therefore, I believe as well that you and we, the foreigners who are in love of Ukraine, we should try to better explain what your political leadership is trying to do to reform the country.
Macroeconomic stability, the creation of the Supreme Anti-Corruption Court, the visa-free regime with EU countries, and decentralization reform are all successful examples of positive change in the country. The UNDP supports Ukraine on the path of sustainable human development aimed at achieving a prosperous, democratic, and strong state in which no one is left behind, and the opinion of every person is taken into account.
So as I said, the UNDP has been active in Ukraine for more than 25 years, but in the last 5 years our focus was on promoting democratic governance reforms. In the last year we have seen that despite very significant anti-corruption reforms that are and other legal reforms, the trust in state authorities has not grown. So if we look at the upcoming elections for the parliament and for the local authorities next year, we would like, of course, a situation that the people vote for people who are generally seen as trusted representatives of the general population. So in order to build that trust between society at large and their political representatives, it is important to look into the factors that determine the integrity and the inclusiveness of these democratic processes.
Ukrainian society regards anti-corruption reform to be one of the most important in the country. The European Union also supports the desire of Ukrainians to live in a country without corruption.
For example, in my last 4 years here in Ukraine, I've traveled around the country, I've met many people, and very often I was asking why individuals would not want to participate in elections. And very often you meet people who are actually ready to take responsibility, who have good ideas for the improvement of society, for the representation of local interests, but they feel that the barriers are simply too high, and that is very unfortunate, because in that way there is only a relatively small pool of people who control the political process, and most of the population feels disempowered and rather marginalized by these institutions. And I think it is important that everybody feels that they can be part of society, either in the form of engaging in civil society, but also in the form of engaging in politics, be that at the local level or at the central level, by participating in election.
Providing Ukraine with international financial assistance is closely tied to Kyiv's program of cooperation with the International Monetary Fund. External financial assistance is extremely important for Ukraine, especially this year and next year, when the peak of foreign debt repayment is anticipated. In addition, raising the standard of living of citizens should be a priority for the new government. Ukrainians should feel the positive changes taking place in the country.
So in general, I would say a lot of significant reforms have taken place that have made it a lot easier for individual citizens. A lot of great steps in the right directions have been made. But of course, it is an ongoing process. It is not possible to reach a final stage of reforms. State administration has to constantly innovate and renew itself to make its services to citizens even more relevant and more accessible. That, for example, also includes accessibility for people with disabilities, with visual or hearing impairments, and this is something that even many West European countries can still improve on a lot. In Ukraine, the awareness is already there, but to make public administration buildings or services genuinely accessible for everyone is something that is a long process that will still require a lot of changes and in investments.
Reforms in the energy sector need to be continued and updated. Dependence on energy imports, high monopolization of energy markets, poor coordination of key agencies, and the restructuring of Naftogaz Ukraine are extremely important issues that the energy reform has to resolve.
We are still waiting for the unbundling of Naftogaz, which is a key issue and which is very much delayed. There has been some work done also on that, but in view of the need to establish an independent transmission system operating the pipelines on the 1st of January 2020, to have an independent TSO which is ready to take over also a new transit contract, this is really essential, and some urgent measures have to be taken.
Supporting the European course was also discussed at the Ukraine Reform Conference that took place in Canada recently. A representative of the United Kingdom, the state that hosted the first Reform Conference in 2017, called changes in Ukraine the best line of defense and wished Ukrainians just a little more patience. Britain has been a democracy for a very, very long time. It takes some time. What I want to say is that your report card has had excellent grades for the past 5 years. So Ukraine confidently maintains its course for reforms in the future. Positive changes in the country will lead to the development of democracy and the destruction of corruption and old structures dragging the country into the past. Both Ukrainians and European partners want positive change.